Firebase Studio. Firebase Studio. Firebase Studio! Does it live up to the hype? Let's check it out.
This is Rossi Bites.
So if you haven't heard, recently Google just dropped Firebase Studio, which is a development environment similar to Bolt.new or Lovable.dev. And I want to take it for a test drive today. I've been hearing lots of great things about it. And what I'm going to do is actually kind of like a showdown battle between Firebase Studio, Bolt.new, and Lovable.dev. I'm going to use the same prompt and see which one gives me the most functional application the quickest. Okay, so I'm at studio.firebase.google.com and I've logged in with my account, and it looks very similar to the other solutions I've mentioned. Looks like we can create new workspaces or import a Git repo. And then it looks like it provides support or maybe IDEs for all of the popular frameworks, which I think is really cool that this is just available here for us to pick what type of a project we want to build. For this particular demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and just take advantage of using the AI prototyping. And you may be familiar with Bolt.new, which is one that I use quite a bit. And I also use Lovable.dev. They're all very similar in the sense that you give it a prompt and you tell it to build something and it goes out and builds it. So I'm going to go ahead and give Firebase Studio here a prompt that is asking it to create an app that allows me to upload an image and then generate a recipe off of that image. So I'm going to go ahead and click Prototype with AI. I'm going to give the same prompt to Bolt, and I'm going to give the same prompt to Lovable.dev. So they're all off and running. Looks like Firebase has created a plan or a summary. Bolt is cooking away at code. Lovable is cooking away at code. So I'm going to just take a look at this plan here and say, prototype this app. So let's see what Firebase Studio does. Okay, it looks like it created maybe like a README or a to-do file, and it's starting to code. Bolt is still churning here. Lovable is also still cranking away. Okay, so let's go back and take a look at Firebase. Looks like Firebase is still generating code here. Bolt.new is done, and it's spinning up version 1 of this. Not bad. Lovable's still churning here. Come back over to Firebase Studio. That's still cranking away. So far, Bolt has won as far as speed. I do like the version 1 UI that it's spun up here. Lovable's still going. All right, Firebase Studio is done with a first prototype. Be honest, I really don't like the UI. Looks like I need an API key though, and I love that I can click auto generate and it's just gonna generate me an API for the Gemini model. Lovable is still just cranking along here. I'm not sure why that is as slow as it is. But let's go back over and check out the Firebase Studio version. Okay, so it looks like the API key has been generated. Let's go ahead and take a look and see if Lovable is done. Still spinning up here. Definitely the slowest of the three. Looks like it's finishing now. A beautiful food image to recipe app. So let's take a look at the UI there. Okay, so that's done. Not bad for version 1. Let's take a look at Bolt. Again, not bad for version 1. And Firebase, really crappy UI. But the question is, which one works? So I was hoping for a drop zone, but I'm going to paste in a URL for an image and then click Suggest Recipe and see if it works. Okay, so it comes back with a recipe for ramen. It gives me all the ingredients and then instructions to prepare it. And this is the image that I uploaded, so that is spot on. Okay, so let's go over and try this same use case in Bolt.news app, and it looks like it failed to generate the recipe. Please try again. Okay, so fail there. It's not functional for version 1. Let's try Lovable.dev, see if this one works. So we're going to drag over our image, generate recipe. Okay, it says soup. but then it talks about 2 cups of fresh seasonal fruits and half a cup of milk. I don't think this is an accurate recipe. I like the look and feel of this one, though. But again, this test was to see which one was functional 100% out of the gate. And so far, Firebase Studio is winning that game. So I'm going to go ahead and tell Lovable and Bolt.new to use my Gemini API key and the Flash 2.5 model to handle the analysis of the image and the recipe creation. So let's go ahead and submit both of those to those 2 different solutions and see if we can get those to work. Okay, so I'm having all kinds of issues with Bolt.new and Lovable.dev working. I keep getting failures. I get messages in the console logs that tell me that the version of the model it's trying to use isn't correct and to use a different version. So I'm going to come back over to Firebase and try to improve this app. And I'm going to ask it to make an edit to allow me to have a drop zone like the other apps to just drop my image on and show me a thumbnail of it instead of putting in a URL. So go ahead and send that prompt in. And we'll see Firebase Studio going through and recoding things. And looks like I now have a drop zone. Not very attractive though. So let's go ahead and try out and see if this actually works. So I'm dragging my soup image. I'm dragging my soup image out and it looks like it's showing me a thumbnail. And I'm going to analyze. Oh, now I'm getting an error about content type. Okay. So I'm going to just put this error message into the chat here and see if it can fix it fairly quickly. Okay, looks like it made the changes. So let's go ahead and just try doing this again. Gonna drag over my image, analyze. All right, so that's working. Again, the UI UX is not great at all. I do believe this is just in beta. So like I've said about a lot of these tools, this is probably the worst it'll ever be. Hopefully it will get better at the UIs that it develops. And I'm curious if it's just caching what I've already done. So I'm going to try a different image. And I'm going to go ahead and analyze this one. Steak with roasted asparagus and mushrooms. And it gives me the ingredients and a recipe. So this is working 100%. And just for reference, this is the full-size image that I gave it. You can see it's got steak, mushrooms, asparagus. So I haven't completely given up on the other apps that were developed. If I look at Bolt, I can see that there's an error here posting to the actual Google API. So what I'm going to do is see if I can fix this by providing all of these console errors to Bolt and asking it to fix that. So I'll go ahead and send that in. Looks like Bolt has found the issue. Okay, so I'm going to drag over my ramen image. It looks like it's generating the recipe now. Whoop, look at that. Shiitake, ramen, and chicken. But it looks like it's all in markdown format. So I would want to have that actually formatted properly. So I'm going to just say that it's working now. Please format the text. Because right now it's pretty unreadable. Now, under the covers, this should just be a fairly simple change in code to reformat the text from Markdown to HTML properly. So let's go ahead and try it again. Okay, it looks like it moved my generating recipe window, and now I'm getting errors again. So if I take a look at the console here, looks like I got a bunch of issues. So like I did before, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy these errors out of the console, and I'm going to paste them into Bolt and ask Bolt to fix it. Okay, looks like it's now trying to create a Supabase edge function. Now, I specifically asked Bolt not to create a Supabase edge function. I wanted to just use its own proxy called Vite built within here. And so it originally set that up and it was working. All I did was ask for a reformatting of the text, and now it's starting to go back and change the code completely to create a Supabase edge function. So I'm going to stop it right in its tracks, and I'm going to tell it I don't want to use Supabase. Also telling it that it worked before we asked for reformatting of the text. Sometimes you got to be firm with these LLMs. So it's going through and now updating the code back to what it was before, hopefully fixing the formatting issues. Okay, it looks like that's done. Let's give it a try. Okay, it looks like it's updated the code, and let's give it a try again. Okay, so I'm going to drag over my soup image, generating recipe, and look at that, nicely formatted. The yield, all of the different ingredients and steps, as well as optional additions. I like how that one came together. It looks nice and clean. But as you've seen, it was not a smooth process right out of the gate, whereas Firebase generated an app that worked immediately as soon as it was done creating. So let's try with the other image as well. One pan, steak, asparagus, and mushrooms. Awesome. I'm getting hungry. Not to be forgotten, let's come back and check out the Lovable version. Gonna go ahead and upload the steak image. And it looks like it's getting the name of what I'm doing correct, but it's still not giving me an actual recipe, and it says it couldn't be fully analyzed. Okay, so I'm guessing that it's not actually working properly with the Gemini model. So I'm going to come down in and just explain that this is not generating a full recipe based off of the image, and basically telling it I want you to use the Google Gemini model to do all of that work. This is what I put in my second prompt when I gave it my Gemini API key earlier. Okay, so it says it's found an issue with the API endpoint for Gemini Flash. And it's saying that the 2.5 model is not found. Meanwhile, I'm going to come back to my crappy looking UI that actually works, and I'm going to drag over another meal and see if that works. And just for reference, this is a classic roast dinner recipe that it gave me. And for reference, here is the image of what I just uploaded to it. So again, meanwhile, while Bolt and Lovable are struggling to build this app to be functional, I have now gotten recipes for 3 different meals. Granted, the UI looks like crap. I still don't want to give up on Lovable, so I'm going to go ahead and drag out the image again, and after the updates, it still looks like it's not analyzing my image properly. So like I did before, I'm going to go ahead and check the developer tools in the browser here. Holy crap, look at all these errors. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and copy this last error message here and put that over into the chat with Lovable. And just let it try to figure out what the problem is. Okay, so it looks like it's going to update to the Gemini 1.5 Flash model for the vision capabilities because it's saying the old one has been deprecated. Again, I asked it to use the latest one, 2.5, and for some reason, both Bolt and Lovable are using 1.5. All I'm looking for is to get functionality here. Okay, well, we're still waiting for Lovable to finish up those edits, so I'm going to go ahead and drag over another meal and see if it can analyze this one properly. Tomato and basil pizza, and here is the reference image that I uploaded. And I have all of the ingredients and the instructions to make this delicious pizza. So let's come back to Lovable, and it looks like the app has reloaded. Let's try this again. Generate the recipe. It's analyzing my image using Gemini 1.5 Flash. Oh, look, roasted tomato and mozzarella pizza flatbread. And it shows all the information up top about how long, how many servings, the ingredients, the instructions, chef's tips with a save recipe and share recipe button as well. So I do have to say, I do like the UI that Lovable has built better than all three of these. But you saw how much work it took to actually get to where we are with this particular one. And this test was to see which solution can spin up and create a fully functioning app the quickest. And for that, I have to give Firebase Studio the win. What I will say is that I do believe this is in beta stage right now, and so it is pretty crappy from a UI perspective. Hopefully they work on improving that. If you like this content, please click like and subscribe. Thank you, and have a great day.